The stars belonged to the Galactic Consortium. They had owned them for 3,000 years, and everyone knew it. From the massive trade stations orbiting blue giants to the mining colonies on distant moons. The consortium's flag flew everywhere that mattered. High Chancellor Zephdar stood in his crystal tower, looking out at the capital world's endless cities. His people, the Altarians, had been the first to join the consortium willingly. That was long ago, when the consortium was just 5 species working together. Now it ruled over 847 different alien races. The process was always the same. A new species would discover faster than light travel. They would meet consortium scouts. There would be talks, demonstrations of power, and eventually submission. Some species fought at first, but they all learned the same lesson. The consortium was too big, too strong, and too smart to beat. Humans were supposed to be no different. Zephdar remembered when the first human ship had appeared at the edge of consortium space 2 years ago. The ship was crude, loud, and inefficient. Its crew spoke in simple patterns and asked basic questions. The consortium's experts had classified humans as a typical emerging species. They would join like all the others, but humans had turned out to be strange. Most new species were amazed by consortium technology. They wanted to trade, to learn, to be part of something bigger than themselves. Humans asked different questions. They wanted to know why some species lived in luxury while others worked in mines. They asked about the consortium's laws, about who made the rules, about what happened to species that said no. Why do the Vrex only get to mine crystals while the Altarians get to study science? A human diplomat had asked during an early meeting. Because that is their role in galactic civilization, Zephdar had explained. Each species contributes what they do best. But who decided what they do best? The question had bothered Zephdar more than he wanted to admit. Humans had established colonies on 23 worlds in just 2 years. This was normal for a new species, but humans did it differently. Instead of asking permission from the consortium, they just did it. When consortium officials arrived to register the colonies, humans treated them like visitors, not rulers. "Welcome to New Earth," human officials would say. "Would you like a tour?" They acted like they owned their worlds completely. This was not how things worked. The real problem started when humans began talking to other species. Not formal diplomatic talks, but casual conversations. Human traders would sit in alien bars and ask questions. Human colonists would work alongside alien workers and share stories about their homeworlds. These conversations spread ideas. Dangerous ideas. The Vrex mining colony on Kepler-7 had demanded better working conditions after talking with human engineers. The aquatic hydros had asked why they couldn't explore space when they were excellent pilots. The insectoid chitin had questioned why they were only allowed to build things for other species instead of themselves. 3 months ago, 6 minor species had formed an alliance with human colonies. They called it the Independent Worlds Group and announced they would handle their own trade and defense. The consortium had been forced to use military ships to break up their meetings. That had led to the first real fight. Human warships were primitive compared to consortium vessels. Their weapons were simple, their armor was basic, and their tactics were straightforward. When Consortium Admiral Crixtal had brought a battle fleet to shut down the human military base on Frontier Station, he had expected an easy victory. The humans had surprised everyone. They had not tried to fight the consortium fleet directly. Instead, they had used small, fast ships to attack the fleet's supply vessels. They had planted explosives on asteroid mining platforms that the consortium needed for fuel. They had somehow convinced the local space station crews to shut down landing bays just as consortium ships needed to dock. The battle had lasted 3 weeks. The consortium had won, but barely. Worst of all, Humans had managed to destroy 2 consortium warships and capture advanced technology before retreating. They adapt too quickly, Admiral Crickstill had reported. They study our tactics during fights and change their own approach immediately. By the end of the battle, they were using strategies we had never seen before. Now there were rumors that human technology had improved dramatically. Consortium spies reported strange new ships in human space, but the details were unclear. Human colonies had started using advanced encryption for their communications. Some reports claimed humans were building new types of weapons, but no one could confirm this. The situation was becoming embarrassing. Other consortium member species were watching to see how the humans would be handled. If humans were allowed to remain independent, it might give other species ideas. The carefully balanced system that had kept peace in the galaxy for 3,000 years could fall apart. Zeftar had spent weeks considering options. Military conquest would work eventually, but it would be costly and bloody. The consortium preferred to avoid such methods when possible. They had built their empire by convincing species to join willingly, making the alternative seem impossible. The solution was obvious. Peace talks. Every species reached the same conclusion during peace talks. When faced with the full scope of consortium power, when they understood how large and advanced their opponent truly was, they accepted that resistance was hopeless. The talks were really just a formal way of accepting defeat. Zeftar had sent the invitation through proper diplomatic channels. The humans had agreed to meet on Kepler Station, a neutral trading post between human and consortium space. The human delegation would be led by Ambassador Sarah Chun, their chief diplomat. The consortium delegation would include Zeftar himself, Admiral Crickstill, and representatives from 12 major species. They would bring detailed charts showing consortium military strength, economic data proving their dominance, and legal documents outlining exactly how human integration would work. It would be a professional, civilized discussion that ended with human surrender. Just like every other time, Zeftar looked out at the stars one more time before leaving his office. Soon, those 23 human worlds would fly consortium flags. Their ships would carry consortium permits. Their people would work in jobs assigned by consortium planners. The humans would learn what every other species had learned. In a galaxy ruled by the consortium, there was no such thing as true independence. There was only the choice between joining willingly or being forced to join later. Zeftar was certain the humans would make the smart choice. He had no idea how wrong he was. Kepler Station hung in space like a massive metal flower, its arms reaching out in all directions. Ships from dozens of species docked at its ports every day, making it the perfect neutral ground for important meetings. The station had hosted peace talks before, though none as significant as these. Ambassador Sarah Chun walked through the station's main corridor, flanked by 2 human security officers. She was a small woman with gray hair and careful eyes, the kind of person who noticed everything but said little. Behind her came Dr. James Wright, humanity's chief scientist, and General Patricia Hayes, representing Earth's military forces. The human delegation was tiny compared to what waited for them in conference. Room Alpha. Consortium representatives filled most of the large chamber, their various alien forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. At the head of the long metal table sat High Chancellor Zeftar, his blue skin gleaming under the bright lights. Ambassador Chun, Zeftar said, rising from his seat. His voice came through a translation device that turned his musical Altarian speech into clear English. Welcome. Please, sit. Sarah took her assigned seat at the far end of the table. From there, she could see the full scope of what humanity faced. 12 different species, each representing millions of worlds. Admiral Crickstill's red scales caught the light as he leaned forward. The insectoid delegate's compound eyes reflected dozens of tiny images of the room. "Let us begin," Zephyr said. "We are here to discuss humanity's integration into the Galactic Consortium. This process has been refined over many centuries. It ensures peace, prosperity, and order for all involved." Sarah nodded but said nothing. "First, let me present the current situation clearly," Zephyr continued. A holographic display appeared above the table, showing a map of the galaxy. Thousands of green dots represented consortium worlds. 23 tiny red dots showed human colonies. "The consortium controls 40,000 inhabited worlds," Zephyr explained. "Our combined population exceeds 2 trillion beings. Our military includes over 50,000 warships, supported by advanced technology that has been developed over 3 millennia. The hologram zoomed in to show massive consortium battle fleets, their ships gleaming with weapon arrays and defensive shields. Then it shifted to show consortium cities, their towers reaching toward alien skies, their harbors filled with trade vessels from across the galaxy. Humanity controls 23 worlds with a total population of 800 million, Zephyr said. Your military consists of approximately 200 ships, most using technology that the consortium had discarded centuries ago." Sarah's expression remained calm, but General Hayes shifted slightly in her chair. "The mathematics are simple," Admiral Crichton added. His voice was rougher than the Chancellor's, like grinding stone. "Continued resistance would result in unnecessary destruction. The consortium always wins, but we prefer to avoid bloodshed when possible." "Indeed," Zephyr said. "Which brings us to our proposal for peaceful integration." Another hologram appeared, showing organizational charts and legal documents. "Humanity will be classified as a Class C labor species under consortium law. This is a standard classification that recognizes your species' practical skills while ensuring proper guidance from more advanced civilizations." Dr. Wright leaned forward. "What exactly does Class C labor species mean?" "It means humans will contribute to galactic civilization through physical work and basic manufacturing," explained the Vrex delegate, whose gray skin was marked with mining scars. "It is an honorable role. My people have served in this capacity for 800 years. Sarah noticed that the Vrex delegate's voice carried no enthusiasm, only resignation. "All human technology will be transferred to consortium control," Zephyr continued. "This includes your ships, weapons, manufacturing systems, and computer networks. Consortium experts will evaluate which technologies are worth preserving and which should be upgraded. Your military forces will be disbanded," Admiral Crichton said. "The consortium provides all necessary defense for member worlds. Private military forces are not permitted. Human populations will be redistributed across consortium space as needed," added another delegate. "Many worlds require additional workers for mining, construction, and agricultural projects. Humans will be assigned to locations where they can best serve galactic civilization." Sarah felt her jaw tighten but kept her voice level. "And in return?" "In return, humanity receives the protection and benefits of consortium membership," Zephyr said. "Your people will have guaranteed food, shelter, and medical care. Human children will receive proper education in useful skills. Most importantly, you will be part of something greater than yourselves. The consortium has brought peace to the galaxy." The insectoid delegate clicked through its translator. "Before our unity, species fought constantly. Resources were wasted on warfare instead of being used for the good of all. Every species initially has concerns about integration," Zephyr said, his tone becoming warmer. "This is natural. But ask any member species about their experience. The Hydras were pirates before joining us. Now they maintain our shipping lanes. The Chitin were constantly at war with their neighbors. Now they build the homes and stations where billions live peacefully. Dr. Wright looked around the table. And species that refuse integration? The room became quiet. Admiral Crichton's eyes narrowed slightly. No species has ever refused integration once they understood the full situation, Zephyr said carefully. The benefits of membership are obvious to any rational being. Resistance has historically been the result of incomplete information or poor communication. But hypothetically, Dr. Wright pressed, if a species did refuse? The consortium maintains order, Admiral Crichton said. Chaos and disorder harm everyone. If a species cannot see reason, then reason must be imposed for the greater good. Sarah exchanged glances with General Hayes. The threat was clear enough. We have prepared all the necessary documents, Zephyr said, gesturing to a pile of crystalline data storage devices. Integration procedures, work assignments, transportation schedules, and legal frameworks. Everything needed for a smooth transition. How long do we have to review these materials? Sarah asked. Integration will begin in 30 days, Zephyr replied. This provides sufficient time for your government to prepare your people for the transition. Consortium efficiency specialists will arrive on Earth next week to begin organizing the process. Sarah stood up slowly. I need to consult with my government. Of course, Zephyr said. This is an important decision, though the outcome is certain. Perhaps 48 hours would be sufficient for your consultation? 48 hours. Sarah agreed as the human delegation left the conference room. Sarah could feel alien eyes watching them. In the corridor outside, Dr. Wright moved closer to her. They're not negotiating, he whispered. They're dictating terms. I noticed, Sarah replied quietly. The technology transfer alone would set us back centuries, General Hayes added. And splitting up our population across their space. That's not integration. That's slavery with better public relations. Sarah nodded but said nothing until they reached their quarters. Once inside, she activated the privacy screen that would block electronic surveillance. What are you thinking? Dr. Wright asked. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the stars visible through their window. I'm thinking, she said finally, that the consortium has made a very big assumption about humanity, which is that we want what they're offering. Sarah turned away from the window. That we'd rather live safely as slaves than die fighting as free people. General Hayes smiled grimly. They don't know us very well, do they? No, Sarah said. They don't. And I think it's time we showed them exactly how wrong they are. Outside their window, consortium ships patrolled the space around Kepler Station, confident that another species was about to join their empire. They had no idea that inside those quarters, humanity was preparing to give an answer that would change the galaxy forever. The 48 hours passed like a slow countdown to disaster. Ambassador Sarah Chun had barely slept, spending most of the time in encrypted communication with Earth. The messages going back and forth were brief and coded, but their meaning was clear to anyone who understood human nature. High Chancellor Zephyr waited in his private chambers aboard the consortium flagship that had docked at Kepler Station. He felt confident about the outcome. In 3,000 years of expansion, no species had ever rejected consortium membership once they understood the full scope of what they faced. Humans might be stubborn, but they were not stupid. Admiral Crichton was less certain. He had studied the reports from the human conflicts, and something about their tactics bothered him. Humans did not fight like other species. Most civilizations fought to win. Humans seemed to fight to learn, treating each battle like a test rather than a war. They will accept, Zephyr said when Crichton voiced his concerns. What choice do they have? Perhaps, the Admiral replied. But I recommend keeping our fleets on alert status. Unnecessary, Zephyr said. Fear is a tool best used sparingly. Too much, and it creates desperation. Too little, it creates false hope. We have achieved the perfect balance. When the time came to resume talks, the consortium delegation gathered in Conference Room Alpha exactly as before. The holographic displays were ready to show integration schedules and work assignments. Everything was prepared for humanity's formal surrender. Sarah Chun entered the room with the same small group as before. Dr. Wright carried a single datapad, which seemed almost insulting compared to the mountain of documents the consortium had prepared. General Hayes walked beside him, her military bearing unchanged despite the circumstances. Ambassador Chun, Zephyr said, rising gracefully. I trust your consultations with Earth were productive? Very productive, Chancellor, Sarah replied. She remained standing as her delegation took their positions near the door rather than sitting at the table. Excellent. Shall we review the integration schedule? Our transport ships can begin arriving at human worlds within the week. Sarah looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each alien delegate in turn. The insectoid clicked softly. The aquatic hydrus representative's gills fluttered nervously. Even the Vrex delegates seemed to lean forward slightly, as if hoping for something unexpected. Chancellor Zeftar, Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the room's translation systems. After careful consideration with our government, humanity has reached a decision regarding your offer. And? Sarah straightened her shoulders and looked directly at the High Chancellor. We respectfully decline everything. The room went completely silent. Not the polite quiet of diplomatic pause, but the shocked stillness of beings who had heard something impossible. I'm sorry, Zephyr said slowly. Could you repeat that? We decline your offer of integration into the Galactic Consortium, Sarah said. We decline the Class C labor species classification. We decline to surrender our technology, disband our military, or relocate our population. We respectfully decline everything you have proposed. Admiral Crickstoll's scales flashed red with anger. You decline? Do you understand what you are saying? We understand perfectly, Admiral. The consortium delegates began talking among themselves in hushed voices. Several translation devices activated simultaneously, creating a babel of overlapping languages. Zephyr raised a hand for silence. Ambassador, perhaps there has been a misunderstanding. You have seen our strength. You know what continued resistance means for your species. We know exactly what it means, Sarah replied. Dr. Wright stepped forward and placed his datapad on the conference table. That contains our detailed analysis of consortium technology, military capabilities, and political structure. We've spent the last 2 years studying you very carefully. And your conclusion? Zephyr asked. You're impressive, Sarah admitted. 40,000 worlds, advanced technology, overwhelming military superiority. But you've made one critical error in your calculations about humanity, which is... Sarah began walking toward the door. Dr. Wright and General Hayes moved with her. You assumed we would prefer slavery to death. You assumed we would choose safety over freedom. You assumed we think the way other species think. Where are you going? Admiral Crickstoll demanded, standing abruptly. We're leaving, Sarah said, reaching the doorway. This is unacceptable. Zephyr called after them. You cannot simply walk away from this negotiation. Sarah paused in the doorway and turned back. Watch us. What is your counter-proposal? The Chancellor asked desperately. What are your terms? There is no counter-proposal, High Chancellor. There are no terms. We're done talking. Sarah's voice became harder. What happens next is your choice. With that, the human delegation walked out. The consortium delegates sat in stunned silence for several minutes. Finally, the Vrex representative spoke up. In 800 years of consortium membership, I have never seen anything like that. Nor I, clicked the insectoid. They showed no fear at all. Admiral Crickstoll was already activating his communication device. I need to speak with Fleet Command immediately. Wait, Zefter said. This is clearly a negotiating tactic. They are trying to improve their position by appearing unreasonable. Did that look like a negotiating tactic to you? Crystal asked. They didn't ask for better terms. They didn't present demands. They just left. The Hydro's representative's gills fluttered rapidly, a sign of excitement among his species. What if they meant it? What if they really would rather fight than submit? Impossible, Zefter said. No species is that irrational. But even as he said it, doubt crept into his voice. Meanwhile, Sarah Chun and her delegation were already aboard their ship, preparing for immediate departure from Kepler Station. As their vessel pulled away from the docking port, Sarah opened a communication channel to Earth. This is Chun. The talks are over. They wouldn't negotiate. It's slavery or war. The response came immediately. Understood. Execute Protocol 7. Sarah nodded and turned to her pilot. Set course for Earth. Maximum speed. As the human ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, it left behind a consortium delegation that was finally beginning to understand. They had made a terrible mistake. Back on the flagship, Admiral Krickstall was reviewing intelligence reports with growing concern. Chancellor, we have a problem, he said. Our surveillance shows human ships leaving all their colonies simultaneously. They're consolidating their forces. For surrender? Zefter asked hopefully. No, Krickstall said grimly. For war. Outside the conference room windows, space seemed peaceful and normal. Ships came and went from Kepler Station as they had for decades. Trade continued. Life went on, but something fundamental had changed. For the first time in 3,000 years, someone had looked the Galactic Consortium in the eye and said no. Not just no to their terms, but no to their entire system of thinking. The humans had walked away from the negotiating table, and in doing so, they had walked away from the very idea that the consortium's authority was absolute. The galaxy would never be the same. 3 months passed in complete silence. High Chancellor Zeftar stood in his command center, staring at the tactical display that showed human space. For 92 days, not a single human ship had responded to consortium communications. Not one human colony had sent a message asking for renewed negotiations. The silence was unnatural, wrong, and deeply unsettling. Still no response to our diplomatic signals? He asked. Communications Officer Devil shook her head. Nothing, Chancellor. All human colonies continue normal operations, but they ignore our transmissions completely. This had never happened before. In the consortium's long history, rejected species had always tried to reopen talks within weeks. They would contact consortium diplomatic offices with new proposals, desperate pleas, or offers of unconditional surrender. The silence suggested that humans were either planning something terrible or had collectively lost their minds. Admiral Krickstall had spent the months studying every piece of intelligence about human activities. The reports were contradictory and confusing. Human ships moved constantly between their colonies, but their cargo was unknown. Construction had increased dramatically on all human worlds, but surveillance could not determine what was being built. Most disturbing of all, human communications had become completely encrypted. Not just military channels, but civilian broadcasts, commercial traffic, even entertainment programs. It was as if an entire species had suddenly decided to hide everything they were doing. They're planning something, Krickstall told Zeftar during one of their daily briefings. The question is what? Perhaps they are building defenses, suggested Intelligence Director Yosef. Desperate fortifications to delay the inevitable. Or weapons, Krickstall said darkly. Something they hope will level the playing field. Zeftar waved his hand dismissively. Let them build whatever they want. 23 worlds cannot outproduce 40,000. Time works in our favor. But time was also working against Consortium authority. Word of humanity's rejection had spread throughout Consortium space, despite official attempts to keep the information classified. On 12 different worlds, labor groups had started asking uncomfortable questions about their working conditions. 3 minor species had requested clarification of their membership terms. The Rex mining colony on Titan 7 had actually gone on strike, demanding the same working rights that humans had offered their allies before the talks failed. It was a small rebellion, easily crushed, but it was the first direct challenge to Consortium authority in over 800 years. "We need to end this quickly," Zephyr finally decided. "Send a battle group to Earth, not to attack, just to demonstrate our power. When humans see our ships in their home system, they will remember why negotiation is preferable to war." Admiral Crystal selected Battle Group 7 for the mission. 12 heavy cruisers, 4 battleships, and a command carrier. More than enough firepower to destroy Earth's entire defense fleet, but small enough to seem reasonable. The message would be clear: submit now, or face the full might of the Consortium. Captain Vitar commanded the flagship Eternal Justice. He was a veteran of 16 campaigns, including the final conquest of the stubborn Theta Collective 50 years earlier. His orders were simple: arrive at Earth, demand immediate surrender, and wait for human compliance. The journey to human space took 8 days. As Battle Group 7 approached Earth's outer system, Captain Vitar prepared his diplomatic transmission. The message would be broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every human in the system heard it clearly. But before he could transmit anything, his communications officer called out in alarm. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the humans. Already? We haven't even announced our presence." "They know we're here, sir." The message is automated, broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Vitar authorized the transmission. A simple message appeared on the main screen, written in basic Galactic standard. "Consortium vessels, you are approaching human sovereign territory. Turn back immediately. This is your only warning." The bridge crew exchanged glances. No species had ever warned off a Consortium battle group before. "Response, Captain?" asked the communications officer. "Ignore it," Vitar said. "Continue to Earth. Prepare the surrender demand." But as Battle Group 7 moved deeper into the system, strange things began happening. First, their long-range scanners detected movement in the asteroid belt. But when they focused on specific locations, nothing appeared on the displays. Then their communication arrays started picking up brief, encrypted signals that cut off the moment Consortium ships tried to trace them. "Sir," reported the sensor operator, "I'm detecting artificial structures throughout the system, but they don't match any known human technology." "What kind of structures?" "Unknown, sir. They're partially hidden behind asteroids and debris fields. My scans can't get clear readings." Captain Vitar felt the first stirrings of unease. Intelligence had reported that human technology was primitive and easily understood. These readings suggested something very different. When Earth came into view, Vitar's unease turned to confusion. The planet was surrounded by a network of defensive platforms that definitely had not been there 3 months earlier. More disturbing, the platforms incorporated design elements that looked familiar. "Sensor analysis," Vitar ordered. "Sir," the operator said slowly, "those platforms appear to be using Altarian shield generators. Rex mining lasers adapted as weapons, and Hydro's maneuvering thrusters. How did humans acquire Consortium technology?" "Impossible," Vitar said. "Run the scans again." Before the second scan could complete, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Vitar's tactical display lit up with dozens of red contacts appearing around his battle group. "Report. Human ships, sir." "There. They're everywhere." On the display, sleek vessels emerged from behind asteroids. from the shadows of moons, from hiding places that sensors had somehow missed. The ships were definitely human in basic design, but they moved with impossible grace and speed. How many? Vitar demanded. 200. No, 300 contacts and climbing. Sir, they were completely invisible until they started moving. Vitar watched in growing horror as more human ships appeared. They surrounded Battle Group 7 completely, moving in perfect coordination. Their formation was unlike anything in consortium tactical manuals. Sir, the communications officer said, her voice shaking slightly. We're receiving another transmission from the humans. On screen, this time, a human face appeared. A woman in military uniform, her expression calm but determined. Consortium ships, this is Admiral Hayes of the Earth Defense Force. You were warned to leave. You chose not to listen. Your weapons are targeted, your shields are being disrupted, and your escape routes are blocked. Power down your weapons and prepare to be escorted out of our system. Captain Vitar looked at his tactical display in disbelief. His 12 cruisers and 4 battleships were outnumbered 6-1 by ships that should not exist. Worse, his sensors were detecting weapon signatures unlike anything in consortium databases. Sir, his weapons officer reported, they're right. Our shields are fluctuating. Something is interfering with our defensive systems. Impossible. No human technology can affect consortium shields. Sir, I don't think this is human technology anymore. These readings are showing combinations of systems from multiple consortium species, but configured in ways I've never seen. Vitar realized that he faced a choice no consortium captain had ever confronted. Fight against impossible odds or retreat without firing a shot. Captain. Admiral Hayes continued, her image still on the screen. You have 60 seconds to begin powering down your weapons. After that, we will assume hostile intent and respond accordingly. For 58 seconds, Vitar hesitated. Then survival instinct overrode pride. Power down weapons, he ordered. Signal retreat to all ships. As Battle Group 7 limped out of human space under heavy escort, Vitar tried to understand what had just happened. Somehow, in 3 months, humans had built a fleet that could threaten seasoned consortium veterans. They had acquired and improved technology from multiple species. Most importantly, they had done it all in complete secrecy. The report Vitar sent back to Consortium. High command was brief but devastating. Humans have achieved technological superiority through unknown means. Battle Group 7 withdrew to avoid destruction. Recommend immediate fleet deployment. When Admiral Crickstall read the report, he finally understood what had been happening during those 3 months of silence. Humans had not been preparing to surrender. They had been preparing to win. Admiral Crickstall stood before the Consortium High Council, his career hanging by a thread. Battle Group 7 had returned with impossible reports. Battle Group 12, sent to investigate, had never returned at all. Now the Council demanded answers that Crickstall did not have. Explain to us, Admiral, how a primitive species with 23 worlds has destroyed 18 of our finest warships. High Chancellor Zefter said, his voice cold with fury. Chancellor, they are not primitive anymore, Crickstall replied. Our intelligence was completely wrong. Humans have somehow acquired and improved technology from dozens of Consortium member species. Council member Drax leaned forward. Acquired how? We monitor all technology transfers strictly. We don't know. But our analysis of the wreckage from Battle Group 12 shows weapons that combine Zephyrian phase technology, Altarian energy systems, Rex mining equipment adapted for military use, and innovations we cannot identify. Impossible, declared Council Member High. No species has ever successfully combined technologies from different civilizations. The engineering principles are incompatible. The humans have made them compatible, Crichton said grimly. They have done something that our greatest scientists said was impossible. High Chancellor Zefter activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. The 23 red dots representing human worlds now pulsed with an ominous light. What is our current tactical assessment? He asked. Grim, Crichton admitted. Human ships are faster, more maneuverable, and better armed than our vessels. Their defensive systems can neutralize our weapons, while their own weapons cut through our shields. Most concerning, they seem to understand our tactics better than we understand theirs. The council chamber fell silent. For 3,000 years, consortium military superiority had been unquestioned. The idea that humans could outfight them seemed impossible. How many ships do they have? Asked Council Member Terran. We estimate between 800 and 1,200 vessels of various sizes. But Chancellor, that number keeps growing. Our long-range sensors detect new ship construction on every human world. 1,200 ships against 50,000, Zefter said. The numbers still favor us greatly. The numbers lied to us before, Crichton replied. Quality matters more than quantity. A single human cruiser can destroy 3 of our battleships. The mathematics are not in our favor. Council Member Drax stood up abruptly. This is unacceptable. We cannot allow a rebellious species to threaten consortium authority. Prepare the full battle fleet. We will crush them with overwhelming force. With respect, Crichton said, I recommend against that action. Why? Because we do not know the full extent of human capabilities. Every engagement has revealed new weapons, new tactics, new technologies. If we commit our entire fleet and lose, the consortium itself could collapse. Before anyone could respond, the chamber's communication system activated. The face of Communications Director Yosef appeared on the main screen, her expression showing barely controlled panic. Council members, we are receiving transmissions from 17 different systems. Multiple member species are requesting immediate audience with human representatives. What? Zefter stood up quickly. What do you mean? The Vrex Collective has declared independence from the consortium and formally requested human protection. The Hydros Maritime Alliance has announced they are withdrawing from consortium space to join something called the Human Liberation Coalition. Sir, it's spreading. The display changed to show a galactic map. Green dots representing loyal consortium worlds were flickering to amber, indicating political instability. Some had already turned red, showing open rebellion. How many worlds? Zefter asked quietly. 2,000 systems have declared neutrality. 800 have requested human contact. 57 have announced complete independence from consortium authority. Admiral Crichton watched the display with growing understanding. They're not trying to conquer us. They're offering an alternative. What do you mean? Asked Council Member High. Think about it. For 3,000 years, species have joined the consortium because there was no other option. Submit or be destroyed. But now humans are offering a third choice. Alliance with equals instead of submission to masters. The communication system activated again. This time, a human face appeared on the screen. It was Ambassador Sarah Chun, looking exactly as calm and composed as she had during the failed peace talks. High Chancellor Zeftar, she said. My name is Sarah Chun. You may remember me. What do you want? Zeftar asked through gritted teeth. To talk. Real talks this time. Not ultimatums disguised as negotiations. You rejected our generous offer of integration. We rejected slavery, Sarah replied calmly. Now we'd like to discuss the future of this galaxy with you. Council Member Drax leaned forward angrily. You have no authority to discuss anything. You are rebels who will be crushed. Sarah smiled slightly. Counselor, with respect, you seem to misunderstand the current situation. We are not rebels. We are the representatives of an alliance that now includes over 300 star systems and is growing daily. We control shipping lanes, trade routes, and military assets that rival your own. She paused to let that sink in. More importantly, we offer something you never have. Genuine partnership between equals. Impossible, Zephyr said. The consortium has maintained galactic peace for 3 millennia. Our system works. Your system works for you, Sarah corrected. For species like the Altarians who rule from the top. But it has never worked for the Vrex who mine your crystals or the Hydros who transport your goods or the hundreds of other species who exist only to serve your needs. Admiral Crickstall studied the tactical displays around the chamber. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Consortium forces were being challenged on dozens of fronts, not by human ships, but by their own member species, demanding the same freedoms that humans had claimed. What are your terms? He asked quietly. Admiral. Council member Drax protested. What are your terms? Crickstall repeated, ignoring the protests. Sarah's expression became more serious. Complete autonomy for all species that requested. Voluntary association instead of forced integration. Equal representation in any governing body that makes decisions affecting multiple worlds. And if we refuse, then the galaxy will be divided between the consortium and the human alliance. Your member species will continue to choose sides until one of us controls everything. Sarah leaned forward. But Chancellor, that's not what we want. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to free it. High Chancellor Zephyr looked around at his council members, seeing doubt in their eyes for the first time in centuries. The careful system they had built was crumbling, not because of military defeat, but because someone had offered their subjects a better choice. How? He asked finally. How did you do it? How did 23 primitive worlds challenge an empire that has lasted 3,000 years? Sarah smiled. You'd call this primitive, Chancellor. That was your first mistake. You assumed we wanted what you were offering. That was your second mistake. But your biggest mistake was thinking that showing us your technology would frighten us into submission. I don't understand. For 2 years, your people visited our worlds, demonstrated your weapons, showed us your ships, explained your systems. You thought you were intimidating us. Instead, you were teaching us. Sarah gestured to someone off-screen, and Dr. Wright appeared beside her. Dr. Wright is our chief science officer. He spent those 2 years studying every piece of consortium technology you showed us. Every weapon system, every shield generator, every engine design. When we went home after each meeting, we reverse-engineered everything we had seen. That's impossible, Council Member Sai said. Our technology is protected by quantum encryption and adaptive firewalls. Dr. Wright spoke for the first time. Your encryption assumes that different species think the same way you do. Humans think differently. We approach problems from directions you never considered. Your locks were designed to stop other Altarians, not humans. But even if you copied our technology, Zephyr said desperately, you could not have improved upon it so quickly. We didn't just copy it, Sarah said. We combined technologies from different species in ways that none of you ever attempted. You keep your member species separate, each doing one job. We brought representatives from dozens of species together and let them collaborate as equals. Admiral Crickstall suddenly understood. The species that joined you. They brought their technology with them. They brought their knowledge, Sarah corrected. Rex mining techniques improved our manufacturing. Hydro's navigation systems enhanced our ship design. Chitin construction methods revolutionized our defenses. When species work together as partners instead of master and servant, amazing things become possible. The chamber fell silent as the full scope of the consortium's failure became clear. For 3,000 years, They had maintained control by keeping species isolated, giving each group only the knowledge they needed for their assigned role. Humans had succeeded by doing exactly the opposite. What happens now? Zephyr asked. That depends on you, Sarah replied. You can try to maintain your empire by force, fighting an increasingly hopeless war against your own people. Or you can join us in building something better. And if we choose,